What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's having a good weekend so far. It is week 7 of the NFL season. As everybody's watching their college football or whatever it is that you're doing on the weekend, of course, we're also gearing up to finalize our starting lineup for week 7. Hopefully, we can make some right calls this week. Get the optimal lineup sorted out and get a win this weekend. Welcome to another episode of Facemask Fantasy. Appreciate you guys coming in and talking shop. Whether you are reoccurring or new, here's how it works. Pretty simple. The members will get first priority. Anybody who is feeling kind enough to donate a super will jump the line as well. If you are not interested in doing that, that's okay. That's fine. But I will be prioritizing those questions first and then getting to everybody else second. Start off with a couple of injury updates earlier today. Kyren Williams, Rams running back, was officially placed on injured reserve. We were expecting that he was going to miss a few weeks, but it's going to be a little bit longer than we probably originally thought. Kyren Williams is out until week 12. There's a bye week in there, so that does not count for the number of games, for the number of weeks, missed by Kyren Williams since he's been placed on injured reserve. So he will miss weeks 7, 8, 9. I think the Rams have a week 10 bye. Therefore, he also has to miss week 11 because he has to miss games, not weeks. So Kyren Williams will not be back until week 12. Good luck predicting how that backfield will shake out. You're only starting any one of those guys if you are pretty desperate, which there could be some situations for that this weekend between bye weeks and injuries. As always, this time of year, we start to have these issues with running backs and which one of these random RB4s do we fire up and hope can have an RB3 performance? We're at that part of the season now. No clearer indication than what the Rams backfield looks like. Good luck. If you picked up Zach Evans, I would probably just leave him on the bench. It sounds like he's still very much in a place where he is developing. Sean McVay offered some comments about the backfield situation for the Rams yesterday. It sounds entirely possible that the guy who gets the most work is Darrell Henderson. I will say that with about a 4% confidence rating out of 100. Like, it's incredibly low. They could get Royce Freeman in the mix. They could get Myles Gaskin in the mix. Maybe Zach Evans is a little bit further along than McVay's comments actually indicate. That could entirely just be smoke and mirrors. At any rate, good luck. I have no situation where I can suggest starting any Rams running back because I don't know which one is going to do the best. I have no idea. Could be Darrell Henderson. Could not be Darrell Henderson. It could be Royce Freeman. I don't think anymore that it's Zach Evans. That was a nice catch by that Alabama receiver. If anybody's watching Alabama against Tennessee, Alabama is driving. Yeah. Good luck starting a Rams running back this week. There are RB4s that you are praying turns in a 10-point performance, or if somebody can get around, at least 7 or 8 points from that backfield. Who will it be? That's anybody's guess. But Kyren Williams out until week 12. Hopefully you have IR spots to stash him. If you don't, yell and scream at your commish that IR spots should have been added to your fantasy football league at least 3 or 4 years ago, if not sooner. The other big injury is Deebo Samuel. He will officially miss the Monday night contest against Minnesota. So there's no questions here about, do I wait for a guy who's playing on Monday Night Football and then fire up a Hail Mary if he can't go? That's not the situation here. He'll be out this game. Sounds like he's going to be out week 8 as well. So we're not going to have Deebo until probably week 10 because I believe the 49ers have a week 9 bye. So we can comfortably assume touchdown Alabama. They go back up over Tennessee. We can comfortably assume we're not going to see Deebo Samuel until week 10. Brandon Ayuk, yeah, it's a week 9 bye. Brandon Ayuk steps into a wide receiver 1 role without Debo. Like, he's got wide receiver 1 upside for the next couple of weeks. On that same team, it sounds like Christian McCaffrey. It sounds like the vibes are good. He just spoke with reporters not too long ago. It sounds like he's feeling okay. I think you can comfortably fire Christian McCaffrey up without any injury concerns or wondering if you have to pivot to a Jordan Mason or an Elijah Mitchell. Sounds like McCaffrey will go. I've not seen anything about Trent Williams, but obviously it's a little bit more definitive here. McCaffrey in, Debo out, not just Monday night, week 7, but week 8 as well. So some big developments that are surely going to affect your starting lineups. We'll try to sort through all of that today. So let's go ahead and get started. I see I got a few members in here already. What's going on, guys? Good to see y'all. And appreciate everybody coming in here as well. Again, let me do my members. Let me get the member questions first, and then I will get to the general public second. Supers will also jump the line if you are feeling so inclined. But that is your call. Whether you do that or not, I only ask that you like the stream if you are enjoying the engagement and like what I have, what the dialogue that we have here that helps for algorithm purposes. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off. Greg, what's going on, man? So you got you have the very first 2 guys I was talking about as far as injuries, plus a heavy bye week. Start London or looks like a collection of wide receivers on the waiver wire? The answer is London. Just fire him up. He's incredibly volatile playing for the Falcons, but there's not a guy on the waiver wire I'm starting over him. Sometimes you just need to bet on talent. It's like I said with Trevor Lawrence on Thursday night. He didn't have like the best game possible, but he got a little bailed out at the end there with a nice long catch and score by Christian Kirk. So that gave Lawrence the score. And then, of course, very unsurprisingly, he picked up 60-plus yards on the ground. So that really helped out his final score. Sometimes, even in less than ideal circumstances, you just need to bet on talent and not worry about other situations, other potential circumstances, even though they're not ideal. In London's case, the Falcons going on the road, it doesn't feel great, but I have to bet on the talent here. I got to go with London over Dubs, over Curtis Samuel. I got to go London. I got to play London. Got to play London over all of those guys. He hate me. What's going on, man? It sounds like Watson is going to be able to go. It sounds like there's optimism that Watson will be able to play tomorrow. He practiced on Thursday in a limited manner. He did so again on Friday. There were bad vibes about Deshaun Watson on Wednesday. Those have seemingly turned around. It sounds like there's optimism that he will go for the Browns tomorrow on the road against the Colts. So you can comfortably fire him up. If he is a surprise inactive, I would probably just pivot to PJ Walker and hope for the best. I mean, you're talking about a bunch of literal backup quarterbacks. Hoyer, it's tough to get behind. It's tough to get behind backup quarterbacks in general, but at least if you have Watson, there's a little bit of a security blanket by securing PJ Walker, because no matter what, you're not going to get screwed out of a potential situation. You can just fire up the guy on the same team that you would have fired up had the starter been healthy. Hoyer's against the Bears. That is a great matchup, but he is on the road, and he is Walker's on the road as well. But at least he's in a dome. He's not on that terrible Chicago Bears field that seemingly somebody always gets hurt playing in Chicago. I guess I would just go Walker. It would be his second straight start. Maybe a little bit of continuity there. But it sounds like Watson's going to be able to go. Sounds like he'll be able to go. Last member question here. before I kick it back up to the top. Greg, about Kareem Hunt, it just depends on who it depends on who you're dropping. It was a big surprise to see Kareem Hunt have the success that he did last week against a really tough San Francisco defense. I'm not necessarily banking on that becomes a regular thing. He'll have his weeks. Jerome Ford will have his weeks. Depends on who you're dropping. I wouldn't be prioritizing Kareem Hunt. Jerome Ford, it could have just been a matchup thing. Sometimes teams just like certain players in certain situations better than other players. It just all depends on what the coach sees on tape, on film during the week, and what they ultimately decide to go with as far as their strategy. And then last week was a Kareem Hunt game for the Browns. It could absolutely swing back to Jerome Ford this weekend. I mean, I would say of course, he's an interesting stash. Hunt is, but like it depends on who you're dropping, you know. I don't think he's not a lock to do that every single week, and he's not a lock to be the guy every single week. Yeah. Not at this stage of his career. Not at this point. Murray, Craig Reynolds, or Jeff Wilson. What is the status of Jeff Wilson? Did he practice in full this week, or is he still like on the injury report? I gotta double check his status actually. They activated him off of injured reserve. Okay. I mean, Jeff Wilson is really, really difficult to trust in his first game back. He's attached to a great offense, so he's going to have a chance to make a couple of plays. Um, he's an intriguing upside guy, I guess, but there's no way we can try to project what he's going to do, given that it's his first game. I don't know how he mixes in. I would probably just play Latavius Murray and just hope for the best. Damian Harris has been placed on IR. Um, there's not really anything that scary about the New England matchup these days. Obviously, for years and years, it used to be a Belichick defense at home was something to avoid with role players. But that might not be the case anymore. They lost Matthew Judon. They lost Christian Gonzalez. They lost like the best pieces of that defense, and they're not that good of a team to begin with. Without Damian Harris, I would assume Latavius Murray mixes in a division game where it's going to be, Buffalo's not going to be able to play as pretty as they usually want to on offense, where they're just throwing and having success with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. I mean, they certainly could, but even in division games, that decreases the likelihood. You might have to chew out some tougher yards, some tougher drives. That's where you lean on the running backs, and Latavius Murray is a guy that's probably going to get in there and mix in a little bit without Damian Harris. The difference between Latavius Murray and Jeff Wilson is we haven't seen Jeff Wilson yet this year. I'm always going to be cautious about those guys in their first game back. And as for Reynolds, he sounds like he's at less than 100%. He's on the injury report. I think it was like an ankle, and I think he's got a couple of injuries that he's currently dealing with. Craig Reynolds is. So it's tough to trust him right now, too. I'll just take the dude who's not hurt. Let's put it that way. I'm going to just take the dude who's not on the injury report, and that's Murray. I'll go Murray. Start Ayuk or Puka? That sucks that we have to make this decision. Ayuk. Puka is still very startable. He dropped a touchdown pass last week that he should have caught. It wasn't a bad throw by Stafford. It was a drop by Puka. So he should have had a better day. That being said, Brandon Ayuk without Deebo Samuel is a top 10 wide receiver, a top 10 fantasy wide receiver any given week. If you can only choose one, knowing that Deebo is definitely not going to play, for me, it has to be Ayuk. there's maybe 5 or 6 wide receivers I would start over Brandon Ayuk this week. A very short list. A very short list. Ayuk. We need to expand that starting. Talk to your commission, expand that starting lineup so you can play both next year, but it's got to be Ayuk. Zach Evans or Justice Hill? Oof. Hill is against the Lions at home. That's a tough matchup. Um, I don't know that I trust Zach Evans at all right now, given Sean McVay's comments, which could be smoke and mirrors. I don't trust most coaches when it comes to what information they provide the media. Um, but at the same time, sometimes their comments are all that we can go off of. And it sounds like Evans is still very much in a developmental situation with the Rams. I think I would slightly lean Justice Hill. I would slightly lean Justice Hill. If Henderson's not out there, if Henderson's out there, drop Zach Evans for Henderson. Um, Feels like he's a little bit safer as of right now than Zach Evans. But I guess at home I would just grab Justice Hill and hope for the best. I don't really want to play either one of these guys, but obviously between bye weeks and injuries and all that, sometimes you don't have a choice. I guess I would go Hill. It's a call between two dart throws, and Evans feels like a longer, tougher shot than Justice Hill by a small amount. Justice Hill. I don't feel great about either, but Justice Hill. Um, what to do with Ridley? That is a great question. It is a difficult question. Let's call a spade on Calvin Ridley. He is a boom bust wide receiver 3 right now. So he has value, but that doesn't mean that he's an auto start anymore. I don't think he's just one of those guys that you automatically plug into your lineup the way he was when he was in Atlanta and the way we expected him to be, especially after week 1 this year when he was, when he went for 8 for 100 and a touchdown. That was back in week 1. That feels a long time ago. Since then, he's had one wide receiver 1 performance. That was in week 5, 7 for 122 in London against the Bills. Other than that, he's been outside the top 25 receivers every other week, and he's been unplayable flat out in 3 of those games, and it'll be a 4th game after this slate of games tomorrow. You probably have to start him next week and hope for the best because he's playing Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is getting crushed by opposing wide receivers. But if he doesn't deliver against the Steelers, he's not a drop yet, but he's clearly on your bench for week 11 or week 10 against the 49ers because they have a week 9 bye. You fire up Calvin Ridley one more time next week because it's a great matchup. But if he doesn't deliver next week, then he's on your bench. And a couple of more bad performances, and the tune could change about whether he's actually a guy who just is an automatic as far as staying on your roster in general. Yeah. Ridley's a pain in the ass right now. You have to hang on to him. I would play him next week, but if he doesn't have a good performance against the Steelers, he's on the bench. Week 9 bye, he's on the bench week 10. Maybe he's on the maybe he comes back to the starting lineup week 11 if he shows enough, but yeah. Calvin Ridley's fantasy relevance, I would say, for the rest of the season hinges on next week. If he can't do well against Pittsburgh, which is a great matchup for opposing wide receivers this year, then we can't trust him. We can't trust him. Full PPR start 2 between James Cook, Brian Robinson, Drake London, or Hollywood. In full PPR, of course, this gives a nice boost to the wide receivers. Cook is on the road against New England. Marquise Brown is on the road against Seattle. London is on the road against the Bucks. Brian Robinson is on the road against the Giants. That is a really good matchup. I'd probably play Brian Robinson. There's nothing scary about the matchup against the Giants. I mean, he's been a little up and down, but for the most part, Robinson's been pretty consistent. In 6 games this year, he's been an RB2 or better 4 times. And he was the overall RB1 back in week 2. Obviously, that was against the Broncos. They are terrible. They are a train wreck, but this is a really good matchup. I like Brian Robinson here. I would go with him. Marquise Brown has been pretty consistent. He's had a couple of down weeks, but he's been, for the most part, a strong wide receiver 2 this year. James Cook has been up and down, has had a couple of RB1 weeks, low-end RB1 weeks, 2 out of the 6 times. He's been an RB3 or worse 3 times. I would probably go Brian Robinson and Marquise Brown and just hope for the best. I think Marquise Brown has cleared 50 yards receiving in 4 out of 6 games this year. He's been a rock-solid wide receiver, too, for the most part. I would probably just go back to that well. I'd probably go Robinson and Hollywood. London against the Bucks. Given these options, I would put London on the bench, and I guess I would, James Cook has been a somewhat not usable RB3 the past couple of weeks. I'll pivot off of him for this week. Given your other options, I'll play Robinson and Hollywood. Robinson and Hollywood. Does McCaffrey play this week? It sounds like it. Sounds like McCaffrey is going to play. The savvy fantasy football managers put Christian McCaffrey in their flex. Put him in your flex. That way, if there's an emergency that you need to pivot to, whether it's Jordan Mason or Jawan Jennings, you maximize the ability to either use that spot for a replacement running back or wide receiver. Put McCaffrey in your flex. Always save your flex for the guys that play last for your team. If it's a Sunday night guy, if it's a Monday night guy, you put those players in your flex just in case. You never know what could happen. Random injuries get picked up at inopportune times all the time. You leave that flex spot open for the maximum amount of time that you need it, just in case. Put McCaffrey in your flex. It sounds like he's going to play, but in the unlikely scenario that he doesn't go, you can either put in, whether it's Jordan Mason, who's available on the wire, Elijah Mitchell on the wire, or Jawan Jennings, if he hasn't already been picked up. He could have been picked up in the wake of the Deebo Samuel news. Put McCaffrey in the flex. Sounds like he's going to go, but if he doesn't, you have it open in the event that you need to, whether if your best option on the wire is a wide receiver like Jawan Jennings, you can pick him up and put him in your flex. If it's Jordan Mason or Elijah Mitchell, it doesn't matter as much, but still you're maximizing your flexibility. It's the point of the position. And you're not handcuffing yourself into I have to grab a running back because I left McCaffrey in my running back spot. So, yeah, he's going to play. I would not. And, I would, if you're waiting on McCaffrey and your alternative is Jeff Wilson, go to the waiver wire. You're not, because you want to play McCaffrey. McCaffrey is one of the players that, there's a short list of players that you're willing to wait on to see if they're healthy. McCaffrey's on that list. We're not firing up Jeff Wilson this week to play to play cautious in the event that McCaffrey doesn't go. I would rather play Elijah Mitchell while waiting for Christian McCaffrey. Because if McCaffrey can't go, then at least I have a guy in that backfield that's going to take some of the work. McCaffrey's a dude that you wait on. What is this? This is a 10-man league. Running backs are really strong. Wide receivers are hurting a little bit. DJ Moore lost Justin Fields for multiple weeks. Drake London is good, but he's up and down. Well, he's up and down because Desmond Ridder is not it as a starting quarterback. Pittman's been solid, but he's not a wide receiver one. You've got a lot of running backs. I would be looking to trade. Stevenson doesn't have great value. I would be holding Taylor. I would be holding Breece Hall. I'd be looking to dangle either Mixon or Swift for a wide receiver. Oh, you have A.J. Brown and C.D. Okay. These must be starters. All right. I totally missed A.J. Brown and C.D. Lamb. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I missed those guys. You're looking good. That's fine. Yeah. Look strong for the rest of the season. Yeah, I missed those two guys off the top. Yeah. No, you're solid. It's strong depth. Looks like a pretty strong squad. Let's see. This is a defense question. Stream the Packers and bench the Chiefs. I understand the thought process there, but I wouldn't do it. Should you drop the Packers defense for Henderson? I would. I would roll the dice on the Chiefs defense. They are good. I know they're going against Justin Herbert tomorrow. They're going against Austin Eckler. They're going against Keenan Allen. That's a tough matchup, but they're at home. That's a division game for them. So it's not as scary of a matchup for a non-AFC West opponent. And the Chiefs get Denver next week. So they're a good play. They're one of the best plays next week as well. The Chiefs are just a flat out good defense. I know that the Packers have a beautiful matchup playing the Broncos tomorrow, but we need running back help. We all need everybody. If you play fantasy football, you need running back help. I don't care who you are. You can never have too much running back depth. Henderson sounds like he might be, again, I don't know who is going to come out of this Rams backfield as fantasy relevant. It might be none of them. It might, like Darrell Henderson might get in there for 6 or 7 touches, and Myles Gaskin might get in there for 4 or 5 touches, and Royce Freeman gets in there for 5 or 6 touches, and maybe Zach Evans gets 2 or 3 looks, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, this is the worst backfield to try to predict in fantasy this year. They might be completely unplayable, all 4 of them collectively. But it sounds like, at least on paper, based on Sean McVay's comments, that Henderson has the best chance to be fantasy relevant. I would pick him up. I would drop the Packers defense. I would just play the Chiefs defense and hope for the best. They're at home, and even if it doesn't work out to the tune of a great performance tomorrow, you still have them next week when they play Denver. Yes, I would drop the Packers defense, play the Chiefs, and pick up Henderson. I would do that. I would do that. Would do that. Does DK Metcalf play? It sounds like he will, even though he hasn't practiced all week. He's been playing through missed practices and playing through pain. So far this season, he's currently being called a game time decision. So it depends on who you have as alternatives. Ideally, you have an alternative that plays in the later slate, at least in the 4:25 Eastern slate, so that you can take it up to game time to see if DK Metcalf is going to be active. Obviously, if he's active, you're playing him. And he has been somebody who has played this year through pain, through missed practices. He's one of the few guys where you can still have some confidence despite the bad juju, the bad vibes. You obviously want to wait on a player like DK. So hopefully you have a player that is in the 4:25 slate, if not Sunday or Monday Night Football, that you can pivot to. As of right now, he's a game time decision, but DK has been one of the guys who has played through the weekly injuries and the missed practices and all that. So as of right now, you can have a little bit of optimism with DK Metcalf. He's one of the few guys that you can say that about given his situation. Yeah, I would hold out on Metcalf. Oh man, that's a fumble by oh man, Alabama. Alabama might be blowing the doors open. Oh, they're not dead yet. Season's not dead yet for the Crimson Tide. Javonte or Jeff Wilson? Javonte. I don't have much confidence in Javonte Williams, but it's not his first game back from injury. And he's the starter, I guess, even though the Broncos are a ticking time bomb. Like, when is it all going to fall apart if it didn't already? I don't feel great about Javonte Williams. He didn't get any work in the passing game last week. Could be Samaje Perine and Jaleel McLaughlin getting in there and taking that part of the role away from Javonte Williams. But at least he looked good running the ball last week. 10 carries, 50-plus yards. So averaging 5 yards a carry is a very good sign. I guess I would play Javonte because at least I'm pretty sure that he is whatever the starter is for Denver. We know that that's Raheem Mostert for the Miami Dolphins. Javonte, I don't feel great about it. He's an RB3 and you're hoping for, at this point right now, modestly, you're hoping for a low-end RB2 performance from Javonte Williams. I don't know what we can expect from Jeff Wilson tomorrow. Start Amari Cooper or Marquise Brown. I would start Amari Cooper if Deshaun Watson plays, and I would start Marquise Brown if he doesn't, I guess. Although he did have a good game last week, even with PJ Walker in the game. And those were gross conditions as well last week. It was bad weather in Cleveland. It was windy, and it was a tough matchup against the 49ers. He still went for 4 for 108. Amari Cooper's a baller, man. Maybe just go Amari Cooper. He's going to play in the Dome. There's no concerns there. It's a good matchup against the Colts. Maybe you just go Amari Cooper. He's on the injury report as well, right? Officially questionable, but will play. Dealing with an ankle injury. Sounds like he's fine. Okay. I would just go Amari Cooper. Even with PJ Walker last week, he went over 100 yards receiving. Sounds like he could get Watson back this week. Yeah, I would just go Cooper. Even if it's PJ Walker for the Browns, it doesn't feel as good because they're on the road. You always worry about backups and role players not playing as well on the road as they do at home. But Cooper in a tough matchup last week had 108 yards with PJ Walker as his quarterback. So maybe just ride that train. I would ride the Amari Cooper wave. I just realized I had an alfalfa situation going on. Cleaned up now. Let's see. Drop Reynolds and pick up Henderson. The thing is here that it Craig Reynolds is a guy that you can't fire up this week because now he sounds like he's less than 100% coming into this game. But Reynolds might be viable again next week because it sounds like David Montgomery's not going to play week 8. We're looking at a multi-week absence for David Montgomery, even though he's not going on injured reserve. Um, there are more questions, at least right now today, around Darrell Henderson than there is around Craig Reynolds. Because Craig Reynolds has had a role with his team all season long. Henderson is only just re-entering the mix out of necessity due to injuries. Do you need to play one of these guys? Are you pick like when do you drop Reynolds and pick up Henderson? Do you need to play one of these dudes? If you don't need to play one of these guys, then I would just probably hold Reynolds because he's probably going to be assuming he can get right and get back to closer to 100% next week. He's at home against the Raiders, and there's nothing scary about that matchup. Henderson sounds like he might be the guy that's worth rostering in this Rams backfield, but we don't know. Nobody can sit here definitively and say which Rams running back is going to have the most success for the next 4 weeks. Anyone who's trying to make any claims, if you catch anybody, whether it's on Twitter, X, formerly Twitter, whatever you want to call it, or on YouTube or any other social, Instagram, whatever. If anybody's sitting here making definitive statements about which Rams running back is going to pop off, you're listening to a guy or a girl who doesn't actually know. It's just a hot take. I would say Craig Reynolds is the guy who's worth rostering if you don't need to start one of these two dudes. If you do need to start one of these two dudes, then you probably have to fire up Henderson because Reynolds is operating at less than 100% this week, and it's a tough matchup on the road against the Ravens. If you need to start one, Henderson. If this is just bench depth, I would hold Craig Reynolds. Hopefully it's bench depth. And then Reynolds is a little bit more viable of an option next week at home in a much better matchup than this week. All right, let's keep it moving. I see a member question, so I got to get to my members first. You got offered Greg Achan and who for ATN? That looks like a miss. That might be a typo. Achan and Flowers for Ken Walker as well. I think I said, did I see earlier, Greg, that are you undefeated? Are you like 5-1 or 6-0? If that's the case, I would probably keep stashing Achan. It depends on, I would need to see the whole roster. Like, you can always ask yourself the question. Everybody can always do this. Does like when you get a trade, when you're kicking the tires on a trade, whether you're the one offering it or whether somebody in your league is offering something to you, the first question is the easy question to ask. Does this help my team from the perspective of I have a need and I am addressing a need with this trade? Like, am I trading from a position of strength to bolster a position of need? If the answer to that question is yes, then we're in business. We can have a conversation here. Oh, you have Walker and ETN? Oh, you were offered Achan. Okay. No. ETN, no. ETN's a top 5 running back rest of season, and honestly, Walker's not far behind, especially with Charbonnet questionable for this week. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. Did Charbonnet practice yesterday? Questionable for tomorrow. He didn't practice yesterday. Charbonnet's unlikely to go. No, I would not do that. I would not do that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Nah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would keep your players. I would keep your players. Full PPR for the flex. You need one between Jacoby Myers, Alexander Madison, and Jerome Ford. Madison. It's not great. Madison is less than stellar, but he's at home. It's a tough matchup against the 49ers, but he's at home. Um, and he gets the ball. He is the Vikings RB1. Cam Akers is not threatening for his job in any way, shape, or form. You're just hoping that you can get, you know, boring wide receiver or a boring running back 2 performance from Alexander Madison. Problem I have with Jacoby Myers, and he might be okay with Brian Hoyer, but a lot of his value has come from Jimmy Garoppolo likes throwing to him. We just can't sit here and predict that Brian Hoyer is going to do the same thing. This could just be a Devontae Adams week. We have more confidence with Jacoby Myers when Jimmy G plays. Week 4, it was Aiden O'Connell. It wasn't Brian Hoyer. But week 4, when Aiden O'Connell started for the Raiders, Jacoby Myers had 2 catches for 33 yards. I can't trust Jacoby Myers. He's a good player. I just don't know that we're going to be able to trust him without Jimmy G. This could just be a week where Brian Hoyer just keys on Devontae Adams. I can't sit here and definitively say, and neither can anybody else, by the way. I can't sit here and definitively say that Brian Hoyer is going to use and look for Jacoby Myers the same way that Jimmy G clearly does and wants to. Meanwhile, I know for a fact that whether it might be gross, it might be boring, but I know that Madison is going to get the ball for the Vikings. I know he's going to get the ball. I would go Madison. Ford is in a good spot. Ford's in a good spot. He might have a little bit of a better matchup, but I don't know how much Kareem Hunt is going to mix in, is going to factor in. If Kareem Hunt is like unexpectedly ruled out, then I would probably go Ford. But if he's in there, if he's active, and if there's any vibe that Kareem Hunt is going to continue to mix into the backfield tomorrow, then I would go Madison. If Hunt is out, then yes, I would fire up Ford. Let's take a look at Addison. He's playing at home. It's on Monday night. He has hit double-digit half and full PPR fantasy points in every home game this year. It's a tough matchup for him, but the trend suggests that he'll be okay at home based on his past performances. Start 2, sit 2. Pacheco, Jacobs, Eckler, Saquon. Holy shit, man. I mean, you gotta. You're talking about 3 RB1s and a high end RB2 with Pacheco. I mean, Eckler and Jacobs, their matchups are a little bit better. You have to sit one of. I mean, Pacheco has. I feel like Pacheco is the automatic odd man out here just because of the talent. This is I mean, you're gonna. Man, I would hate having to make these choices. I would demand that the league, whether the league needs to expand or whether the starting lineup needs to expand, like you're gonna have an RB1 on your bench. I guess I would go Eckler and Jacobs. Saquon's excellent, but I guess his situation isn't as good because the Giants are not very good. I mean, you got to sit a top 8 to 10 running back no matter what. That's a no-win situation, man. I guess I would play Eckler and Jacobs. We need to expand that starting lineup. That is uh that is criminal that you have to put one of those two on the bench, or that it's criminal that you have to bench at least one of Jacobs, Eckler, and Saquon. But I guess I would bench Saquon. An RB1 is going to be on your bench. There's no way to feel good about that. Um that I would have a talk with the commissioner, expand those starting lineups. Start one between Ayuk and Amon Ra. I see you have Chase listed as one of your wide receivers. He's on bye. So can you play both of these guys? Chase is on bye, so he needs to come out of your lineup. Can you play both of these guys? Now, if not, I guess I would go Ayuk. It's a slightly softer matchup, even though it's two wide receiver ones. But yeah, Chase is on bye, so hopefully that means you can play both of those guys. If not, I guess Ayuk. But again, it's like the last question. I mean, there's going to be if you have to sit one of those two, you're putting a wide receiver one on your bench. We got to expand these starting lineups, people. If your starting lineup has only two wide receivers, tell the commission we need to expand to three receivers in 2024, or find a league that does have already three receivers. We got to stop getting punished for drafting good players and then having to leave them on the bench. It's like, if I'm in a league where it only starts two wide receivers, it's like, hey, expand it to three or I'm out. And that's what it comes down to. You should be rewarded for the players that you draft or trade for, whatever it is. Anyway, Chase is on bye, so hopefully that means that you can play both of those two. 3 out of 4 between Godwin, Lockett, I guess that's Christian Watson or Puka. Godwin is at home against the Falcons. Lockett is at home against Arizona. Watson is on the road against the Broncos. That's a great matchup. And Puka is against the Steelers. I guess I would play Puka. He had a wide receiver in his hands. He dropped it last week. He would have had a much better game had he just caught the ball. Man, these are all really good options. Godwin, Christian Watson, Lockett. I guess I would go Godwin, Lockett, and Puka. I mean, Watson is your ceiling play, but also he's probably got the lowest floor. Godwin and Puka are strong PPR plays, so I'd probably fire them up. And then Lockett and Watson are both kind of boom bust. Lockett, I would say, I like the spot that Lockett is in. He historically does very well against the Arizona Cardinals. You can look up his stats against the Cardinals on StatMuse if you would like, statmuse.com. You can look up anything you want, an individual player's career against one team, an individual player's game stats in certain situations. It's a good resource. It's a good tool. You'll find on there that Tyler Lockett has had a lot of success historically against the Arizona Cardinals, and maybe that's a little bit of bias. Obviously, no two games are the same and no two situations are the same, but sometimes a player just does well against certain teams, and that's just the name of the game. I guess I would play Lockett, and then I would go Godwin and Puka, who are strong PPR plays. As far as Hunt or Gabe, I would go Gabe. But if this is the same, Tommy, if this is the same league, maybe it's not. Can you play all 4 of the guys in your first question? If not, I would go Gabe Davis over Kareem Hunt. Gabe had a bad week last week, but it's a much better matchup this week, believe it or not. New England lost Christian Gonzalez. They lost Matt Judon. The defensive pieces that make New England an annual threat are not there at the moment for them. So the matchup is softer. Plus, he's not on the injury report. Kareem Hunt is on the injury report. So I would go Gabe. Yeah, I would go Gabe. Let's see. Flex, Gabe Davis, George Pickens, Dubs, or Foreman. Is this just one? Is this one or two? And what's the scoring? Pickens is tough to trust with Deontay Johnson back. His numbers take a nosedive in the games that both he and Deontay play together. Depending on the scoring, I mean, I don't know that I can go. I don't know that I can go Foreman if it's full PPR, but if it's half PPR, that's a little more enticing. Um, Pickens is tough to trust with Deontay back. Yeah, I would need to start. I need to. I would need to. I would need to see the scoring. But I don't. I will say this: I don't trust Pickens as much with Deontay Johnson back in the mix because now you're relying on like one big play. The Bears have they have the Raiders at home. Foreman is a boring floor play. Foreman is a boring floor play, and then Gabe is your boom bust play. I guess that's what I would do. If you need upside, if you need a ceiling play, you're hoping for a long catch for a score, that would be Gabe. If you can get away with like 7 or 8 points, hopefully 10, then maybe just go Foreman to play it safe. If you need upside, I would probably go Gabe. Armando, you're welcome. Appreciate the kind words. Drop Hill, Ingram, or Henderson for Jeff Wilson. I guess. I guess Hill. Ingram looked better last week than I thought he would, and it sounds like Henderson is going to be the guy. Like tentatively, he could be the guy for the Rams. If you want to pick up Wilson, I guess Justice Hill is the drop. I guess Justice Hill is the drop. Like Justice Hill or Zach Evans, Justice Hill, but Justice Hill or Darrell Henderson. Right now, based on what we know, I guess Henderson. It's tough though. All of these Rams running backs could turn out to be fantasy irrelevant. But I guess I would drop Hill for Henderson because right now it sounds like he has a leg up as far as being whatever the next, Rams running back looks like as far as getting the most opportunities. It sounds like it could be Henderson. Greg, I'm just seeing your defense question, so let me get to that here. If you have the Seahawks, I would probably just keep the Seahawks at home against Arizona. That's a good spot for them. They're playing much better on defense this year than they were last year. and Arizona has started to kind of come back to earth. They were they were an interesting they were looking like an interesting team the first couple weeks of the season. They looked like they were kind of scrappy. But recently it's kind of like, okay, now the Cardinals are who we thought they were. I think they've lost by double digits like 3 or 4 straight weeks in a row. Um, I would have to imagine that continues this week. The Seahawks are just a better team than the Cardinals. Most teams are. The Seahawks certainly are. I think that's fine. Their defense is fine to fire up this week. That's fine. No issues with the Seahawks this week. I do like the Chiefs, though, for the rest of the season as a defense. They're just flat out good. They are good in a way that they haven't been over the past couple of years. Chiefs defense is much improved. They used to be a very gettable defense the past couple of years. That's not the case this year. They are very good. They're very much improved. Let's see. 6-point PP 6-point is that 6-point touchdown full PPR? You know, flex between Dubs, Davis, and Rice. If that's 6-point passing touchdowns, I guess that doesn't matter for these guys. Between Rice, Gabe, and Dubs. Gabe is your upside play, but I'm when I say that, he's your boom bust play. So if you need a long, if you need a long bomb for a score, or if you're content with like he's only probably going to get 4 catches, but it could be for 60 to 70 yards and a touchdown, that would be Gabe. Rashee Rice has only cleared 50 yards receiving in 2 games this year. Now, one of those was last week, but he's been under 40 yards receiving in 4 of 6 games this year. So he's a little more volatile, even though he does appear to be whatever the go-to, if we can call whatever Patrick Mahomes wide receiver 1 is, it looks like it's Rice right now. So there's something to be said for that. But he's under 40 yards receiving 4 of 6 times this year. So he's kind of volatile. I would maybe just go Gabe and hope for the best. Hope that the touchdown regression course corrects itself to this week. It's not as scary of a matchup against New England than it has been in years past. They're down Matthew Judon. They're down Christian Gonzalez. The heavy hitters in this defense are not there the way that they have been for Belichick defenses of old. Might just go Gabe and hope for the best. Dubs is a boring floor play, I guess. Davis is the more upside play and probably the guy that I would go with. Hunt or McLaughlin for the flex. So we now know, obviously, Hunt is on the injury report. Coming into this game, questionable. No guarantees that his role is the same as it was last week. McLaughlin is in a similar role in Denver. Change of pace role. He had a high watermark last week, 40% of the snaps against Kansas City. That was that Thursday night game, right? So that's not entirely surprising to see backup running backs get more involved on Thursday night football. Unless you're Tank Bigsby, get involved at all. Man, it's McLaughlin feels like, man, he's high risk because His 40% snap share last week could have just been a result of the short week. And it's not inconceivable that Javonte gets more work this week. But McLaughlin has forced the Broncos to carve out a role for him. He's played well. And he has at least 2 catches in his last 3 games, each of his last 3 games. That's solid receiving work for a change of pace guy. Hunt caught 3 for 24 last week. Slight edge to McLaughlin just because he's not on the injury report, but I would caution that he's going to have to come through on some strong efficiency. I don't know that he sees more than a third of the snaps tomorrow for the Broncos. Slight edge to McLaughlin, I guess, but it's tough. The difference is Hunt is on the injury report, and I guess that's my determining factor. Pick one between Michael Wilson, Javonte, Elijah Moore, and Quentin Johnston. Well, we can't fire up Quentin Johnston. He has done nothing to indicate that we should have any type of confidence in him. And if it's not dynasty, Quentin Johnston can comfortably be dropped at this point. He is not on the radar in any way, shape, or form. Between Elijah Moore, Javonte Williams, and Michael Wilson. I like Michael Wilson, but I don't think we can consider him here, given these other guys. It's between Javonte and Elijah Moore. If Watson plays and it's full PPR, I guess I would play Elijah Moore. If it's half PPR, I might try to roll the dice with Javonte in a good matchup. He's been running the ball well. He was not involved in the receiving game at all last week. I don't even think he had a target. But he did he ran it 10 times for 52 yards. So averaging over 5 yards a carry is always a good sign. If it's full PPR and Deshaun Watson plays, I guess I would play Elijah Moore. Otherwise, I would play Javonte Williams. Depends on the scoring. Full PPR. Elijah Moore, if Deshaun Watson plays, and it sounds like he will. Elijah Moore, if Deshaun Watson plays, and it sounds like he will. You don't need to play Reynolds, Cap? Okay, then I would keep Reynolds. I would feel better about him as a potential flex option next week when ideally he can get less than or he can get back up to closer to 100%. In a better matchup at home against the Raiders. Henderson is I would say a longer dart throw at this point. We don't know how this Rams backfield is going to shake out. Anybody who tries to say that they know that they're going to predict what's going to happen, it's just a hot take. Nobody actually knows. Sean McVay said that Darrell Henderson looks good, knows the system, whatever. He had some positive things to say about Darrell Henderson. He had some positive things to say about Myles Gaskin, whatever. He sounded like Zach Evans is still in like a developmental situation. How much we can trust Sean McVay, that's another question. Coaches fabricate how they actually feel in their answers to media questions all the time. I would just keep Craig Reynolds because we know David Montgomery is out next week. We can't sit here today and definitively figure out Nobody can sit here definitively and try and suggest which Rams running back is the most fantasy relevant. Could be none of them. I would say there's a decent chance it's none of them. Okay. Start one between Gesicki or Darnell Washington. Boy. Uh what has I mean, Pat Fryermuth is on IR. Darnell Washington has one catch on the season. At least Gesicki has like a little bit more usage than that. Gesicki, man, we're hitting the bottom of the barrel with these tight ends. I'll go Gesicki. Darnell Washington has one catch. Darnell Washington on the season has one catch. And I know Fryermuth is on IR. We have no sample size on Darnell Washington right now. It's a good matchup. The Rams are giving up a lot of production to tight ends. We just don't have anything to go off of with Darnell Washington. I would just play Gesicki. That's a wrap from Tuscaloosa. Alabama wins 34-20. Roll Tide. Let's see. Rams are probably not going to trade for a running back at this point. I mean, they signed Darrell Henderson, they signed Royce Freeman, they signed Myles Gaskin. They're just going to try to piecemeal this thing together until Kyren Williams comes back. All that to say, I would probably just hold Craig Reynolds. We know he has a role if one of either Montgomery or Gibbs is out. We know he has a role. Josh Downs or Smith and Jigba. Smith and Jigba's got a little bit more appeal this week because DK Metcalf hasn't practiced all this week, but DK Metcalf has also been he's one of the few players where, you know, we almost can ignore missed practices with him and he just plays through injuries. That has been his MO. Smith and Jigba did look, he looked better last week. I think he had 4 for 48. That was his most involvement on the season so far. Downs is in a really tough matchup against the Browns. The Browns are probably the most difficult matchup for opposing wide receivers. That's a really tough spot for him, even at home, against that Browns defense. I might roll the dice on Smith and Jigba. JSN had 4 for 48 last week. Downs had 5 for 21 last week. He did catch a touchdown. But he's got the toughest matchup of his season, most likely, this week going up against Cleveland. Cleveland is giving up, regardless of the format, regardless of scoring format, Cleveland is giving up the fewest wide receiver points to wide receivers on the season by about a full touchdown's worth of points. About 6 or 7 points per game fewer than the next best defense against wide receivers. That's the Jets. The Browns are dominating opposing wide receivers. I would roll the dice. If you're between Downs and Smith and Jigba, I would roll the dice on Smith and Jigba. I would roll the dice on Smith and Jigba. And Greg, real quick, just to like finish up your thoughts about your wide receivers, I would say you don't need. You have. I know Debo's going to miss a couple weeks. That hurts, but you have Amari Cooper. You have Drake London. Um, those wide receivers are good enough when everybody's healthy. Those wide receivers are good enough. I don't. I don't need. Don't need CeeDee Lamb or anything like that at the expense of losing someone like Etienne or Walker. You're good where you're at. You're good where you're at. He hate me. Would I trade Diggs for? Well, it depends on the two players. Who are the two players you're getting? Probably not though. Diggs is a bona fide wide receiver one. I mean, are you guaranteed to start both of these players every single week? If the answer isn't no, then the answer for me to that trade is no. I mean, I need a wide receiver two and an RB2, and that's being a little conservative, probably. Your Diggs is bulletproof. It depends on the two players. They better be two really good players that I'm putting in my lineup every single week. And of course, one should be a wide receiver. At least one should be a wide receiver to supplant losing Diggs. I don't love in a vacuum, I don't love the idea, but I would need to know who the potential two players are. But in a vacuum, it's like, I don't want to trade Stephon Diggs. He's a bona fide wide receiver one. He's a top 6 or 7 wide receiver any given week. Judy, Josh Reynolds, or Kendrick Bourne. Pick two of these guys in full PPR. Man, how the mighty have fallen. Well, I don't know. Jerry Judy was never really a mighty, but his expectations were high. Let's put it that way. Between Judy, Reynolds, or Bourne, I would probably play Judy and just hope for the best. Last week, where Jameson Williams caught a nice long catch for a score in that same game, Josh Reynolds had 3 catches for 50 yards, played 81% of the snaps. So he's out there. That's good, but his production waned. Amon-Ra is back in the lineup. Jahmyr Gibbs is back in the lineup. He's going to take looks in the passing game, in the receiving game. Obviously Jameson Williams is back doing his thing. I think I would say Kendrick Bourne and Jerry Judy. Jerry Judy is a hope for the best type of play, and Kendrick Bourne is just an opportunity play. He's got a wide open opportunity. Is Juju out again? Even if he isn't, who cares? No offense to Juju. He's questionable for week 7 with a concussion. I would probably go Judy and hope for the best, and Kendrick Bourne. I would leave Reynolds on the bench. Detroit's offense is now whole with Jameson Williams return. Well, they're down David Montgomery, but as far as their pass catching threats, Gibbs is back in the lineup. Amon-Ra is back in the lineup after missing a game. And Jameson Williams is now back with multiple games under his belt since the suspension. So for me, Josh Reynolds is the sit here, and I would play Judy and Bourne. I would play Judy and Bourne. All right, where are we at? Yeah, Debo's out for the next couple of weeks. Cap, I mean, who's your other tight end? This is what you always want to ask yourself with these trades. If you're trading a tight end one, who are you pivoting to? What tight end are you pivoting to? Are we streaming? Um, do we have a guy on the bench that you could automatically insert? What's your tight end situation if you were to move Kittle? Saquon for Eckler, I'm on board with that, but throwing Kittle in there, like, what is your tight end situation? That feels like a lot to give up, even though I'm not opposed to moving off of Saquon. I've expressed my long-term concern about him um, on several recent live streams, but basically the Cliff Notes version of Saquon for me is concern about rest of season availability. The Giants season is going nowhere fast. He's already picked up an injury that cost him 3 games, and he can make more money next year on the back of a new contract. Why would he put his body on the line for a dead Giants team going nowhere by week 11 or 12? They're 1-5. Even if they beat Washington tomorrow, they're only 2-5. They got to go 500 the rest of the season. If they go 500 the rest of the season, they're a 7-win team. My concerns about Saquon are loud. So if you're moving off of him, I don't hate it. But if you're giving up Kittle as well, what's the tight end that you're pivoting to? That's my only question. Let's see. PPR pick 2. Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith, Jacoby Myers, Christian Watson. Yeah. Don't play Jacoby. I would not play Jacoby Myers this week. Myers, a lot of his production has been tied to the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo loves throwing him the ball. When Jimmy is healthy, Jacoby Myers has to be in your lineup. But nobody can sit here and predict that Brian Hoyer is going to look for Jacoby Myers the same way that Jimmy Garoppolo looks for Jacoby Myers. Tomorrow could just be a Devontae Adams day. I would not play Jacoby Myers. I would probably just play those first 2 guys, Devontae Adams. Devontae Smith is on the injury report. I think it was a calf injury. This is a great bounce back spot for Devontae Smith this week after a bad past couple of weeks. I mean, we're expecting a track meet tomorrow night between the Dolphins and the Eagles. I think it's fair to say a lot of people are expecting big plays to be made on offense on both sides of the ball. You would think Devontae Smith is a big part of that. Christian Watson, though, is in a spectacular spot tomorrow against the Green Bay Packers, or against the Denver Broncos. The Packers are playing the Broncos. It is a beautiful spot for Christian Watson tomorrow because the Broncos are getting killed by everybody in every which way. I would say Johnny, obviously, Devontae Adams is an auto. He's auto. I know that he's had a couple of down weeks, but Devontae Adams is auto. You have to fire him up every week. You drafted him to be a horse. You gotta trust in him each week, even if it doesn't happen. You have to trust in him each week. I would say Devontae Smith is your floor play, but if you think you need upside, if you're in, and I see you're 1-5, go for broke, swing for the fences. I would say that's Christian Watson. Your go for broke, swing for the fences play is Christian Watson. Your play it safe play is Devontae Smith. Smith, because he's attached to a great offense in what should be a high octane showdown with lots of points scored. Watson is just in a beautiful matchup because he's playing Denver. Adams auto, Smith floor, Watson ceiling. And if you feel like you need to be aggressive, then maybe I would just play Watson. If you think you need to be aggressive, then I would play Watson. But appreciate the kind words. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. Marquise Brown or Tyler Lockett? Uh so Marquise Brown is probably going to see Witherspoon tomorrow. That doesn't scare me off Marquise Brown to the point where I don't want to start him, but I will go back to the well with Tyler Lockett from the perspective of go look at his career numbers against the Arizona Cardinals. Tyler Lockett kills the Arizona Cardinals. Let's play this game. I'll play this game with y'all. And I can't share my screen because um I am streaming directly on YouTube, but I can still regurgitate numbers back to you guys. Starting with the most recent games and working our way backwards. The past few matchups dating back to, let's go back as far as 2020. Past 3 years. Last year, 11-6, Lockett, 5 for 67 and a touchdown. A month earlier, 10-16 last year, 5 for 17, not a good game. Or excuse me, 2 for 17, not a good game. However, the 4 games prior to that, 5 for 98, 2 touchdowns. 5 for 115, no scores, but 5 for 115. You take that every week. 9 for 67 and a touchdown. And then he had his probably best game of his career, October of 2020 against the Cardinals. Tyler Lockett went for 15 catches for 200 yards and 3 scores. Now, he's not going to do that, most likely. He's not going to do that. But in his past 6 games against Arizona, he's cleared 60 yards receiving 5 times. He's scored 4 times, and he's gone at, 98 yards. He just missed 100 yards 3 times. Lockett has killed the Arizona Cardinals in his career. I might just chase that and go with Lockett. Hollywood has been rock solid this year, but Lockett is just in a better situation at home. Sometimes, all things equal, you just want to take the player that's in the better situation. Better team, better quarterback. Geno Smith is better than Josh Dobbs. Like, sometimes you just want to go with the safer situation, and that's Lockett at home. Sport Dog, appreciate the kind words. Thank you for subscribing. I will be here tomorrow as well, 11 a.m. Eastern, for more start sit help, any last minute start sit help that anybody needs. Also live on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, for waiver wire help and any general AMA. And then I also go live before Thursday Night Football each week, 6 p.m. Eastern. Then start sit help pertaining to the Thursday night game, general questions about trades, whatever have you. We can start looking at start sit questions at that time, but obviously things can fluctuate and change quickly with practice reports, new injuries, whatever have you. You already know, if you've played fantasy football for more than a couple of years, random shit pops up all the time that we weren't necessarily preparing for or were anticipating. So answers to start sit questions on Thursday can certainly change, but I'll take those as well. And of course, we'll talk shop on the Thursday Night Football game as well. So 4 times a week, 6 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday for last minute start sit help. But appreciate the sub. Howell or Deshaun Watson this week? Howell. I would just play Howell. He's playing decent recently. Watson is on the injury report, and it's questionable how healthy he is right now. We don't know how healthy his shoulder is. It sounds optimistic that he's going to play, but I would just stream Howell. I would just play it safe in this scenario. Nothing scary about the matchup against the Giants. He's got good weapons to throw the ball to. Well, he's got a couple good weapons. He's got Terry McLaurin. He's got Curtis Samuel. His running backs are decent. I can't sit here and say that Jahan Dotson is a good weapon to throw to. He's been a colossal disappointment. And Logan Thomas is a viable tight end. And yeah, nothing scary about the matchup against the Giants. How? There's no concerns about his availability tomorrow. There are some concerns about Deshaun Watson's availability. I would go Hal. I would go Hal. Will, if you're in here, I don't know what my plans are for tomorrow. TBD. TBT. Let's see. And yeah, CXK, I would go Gesicki over Darnell Washington. Drop Hal Deshaun. No, you're not dropping Pitts. No, if you have Kyle Pitts, you're just firing him up. No, not Komet. I like Musgrave. I like the spot he's in tomorrow, but you have to play Kyle Pitts. You have to play Kyle Pitts. Nah, there's no drops there. Not right now. There's no drops there. You got to just keep Pitts, play Pitts, and hope for the best. It's a bad spot tomorrow for Pitts, but you're not dropping Kyle Pitts. You just can't. If you're that scared about Pitts, then I guess you could drop Deshaun Watson for Musgrave, but that's dicey. Assuming Watson's able to come back healthy at some point this season. Fully healthy, anyway. You could drop Deshaun and play Musgrave if you're really worried about Kyle Pitts. But that's a tough sell. That's a tough sell. Pitts has been good the past couple of weeks. He scored his first couple of touchdowns of the season. Dare I say they're finally getting him involved? I would probably just play Pitts and hope for the best. I like that tiered scoring for PPR, by the way, CXK. I do like that. But that means, there's more there's more value in wide receivers than there is running backs, So I would probably go Elijah. Yeah, my point stands. If Deshaun Watson plays, Elijah Moore. If he doesn't, Javonte. Javonte Williams or Zay Flowers in full PPR. I would go Flowers. Caught his first score last week. The Ravens are at home against Detroit. The Ravens are probably going to have a tough time. They are historically a strong rushing offense, but Detroit is killing it against opposing run games this year. The Ravens are going to have a tough time running the ball. They're going to have to throw. And in full PPR, I'll take Flowers. Javonte Williams' role is murky. It's a three-headed committee with Samaje Perine and Jaleel McLaughlin. Flowers is an every down player for the Ravens. I would go Flowers for sure, especially in full PPR. I would go Flowers. Yeah, I would go Flowers. Let's see. Right, someone dropped T. Higgins. Are they on drugs? Like, I know T. Higgins hasn't been good this year, but you don't just drop T. Higgins. That's insane. I will tell you, though, if I had Josh Jacobs and Breece Hall and someone offered me James Cook and an injured David Montgomery, that would be an instant no. If you can pull it off, great. But if somebody offered me that, I would instantly say no. You're going to have to pony up more than that. Cook has crashed kind of back to earth a little bit, and obviously Montgomery is injured. If you can get one of those guys for that offer, then I could understand. But I can't imagine getting both. There's no way. If you can, great. If you can, spectacular. I wouldn't be holding my breath on that one, though. Who's your wide receiver 2 this week? Not Jacoby Myers. I mean, I would probably go Amari Cooper. You have to bench Godwin and Terry McLaurin? We need to expand these rosters. We need to have a conversation with y'all's commissioners. If you're only starting 2 starting wide receivers and it's the league or one of the leagues that you play in that you care about the most, we got to expand that to 3. We got to expand that to 3. Y'all are getting you're getting screwed out of playing your good players. That's no fun. That's no fun. I guess Amari Cooper, he had 108 yards receiving last week, even with PJ Walker. And it sounds like he's going to get Deshaun back this week. I guess I would go Cooper. Let's see. Ray, just be cautious with DK Metcalf. It sounds like he has been a guy who has played through injuries and has played through missed practices this year, but it sounds like he's a true game time call this week. So just be prepared to have backup plans ready to go. Just be prepared to have a pivot in the afternoon slate, just in case. Just in case he's not able to go. But someone dropped Miles Sanders. I guess he's worth adding. Do you have an IR? Is he still listed as out? He's on bye this week. The Panthers are not playing this week, so he's on bye. Is he IR eligible? Can you put Miles Sanders on IR? If you could put Miles Sanders on IR, then sure, screw it, pick him up. I just don't like Miles Sanders. He's not in a good situation. It's a far cry from his year with the Eagles last year. You're hoping he can be an RB3 rest of season. If you're picking him up, you're probably in a situation where you don't have to start him, which is a good thing. You do not want to be having to rely on Miles Sanders this year. But I'm only picking him up. I'm only picking him up if I can put him in IR. If you have to waste a roster spot on Miles Sanders, I would let somebody else do that. I would let somebody else have that headache. I haven't been feeling Miles Sanders since the beginning of since the off season. I got a preseason video on the channel about that. That vouches for my. I had my concerns about Miles Sanders this offseason. I'm just not the right guy to ask about Miles Sanders because my answer about him is going to be, no. But if he's available to pick up for free and you have an IR spot where you can stash him, then sure. Sure. Then he's worth picking up, but only if he's IR eligible. If he's not, then let somebody else grab him. Let's see, a tight end question. You're between Njoku and Jonnu Smith. Was Njoku on the injury report again this week? Did not appear on the injury report. That's good. He had a long catch and run for a score called back last week. So that took away from his overall performance. He's been very blah this year, though, has David Njoku. Meanwhile, even with Kyle Pitts catching touchdowns, Jonnu Smith is still he's got 2 top 6 performances 2 of the past 3 weeks. Um man, is it Jonnu? Is Jonnu the play over David Njoku? He might be. It's not a good matchup, but he might be. It might be Jonnu. It's dicey, but most tight ends are dicey. What are you going to do? I guess I would go Jonnu Smith. His floor has been pretty steady since week 2. Jonnu's floor has been pretty steady since week 2 when he started getting more involved. I guess I would say Jonnu. Since week 2, Jonnu Smith, 4 for 47 week 2, 5 for 37 week 3, 6 for 95, 6 for 67, and then last week 4 for 36 in his first touchdown on the season. So he's got at least 4 catches in every game that he was involved in the passing game this year. Yeah, Jonnu is your floor play. Jonnu is the floor play. I'll take that. I'll take Jonnu Smith. If DK is out, it sounds like DK is going to play. It sounds like DK is going to play. That being said, of these guys, you have to play Tyler Lockett. He's the most talented guy of this bunch. He has crushed the Arizona Cardinals for his career, especially recently. He's been up and down this year, but at home, I'm going back to the well with Tyler Lockett in a great matchup that he has historically done very well in against Arizona. And especially if DK Metcalf is like less than 100%, that could mean, a few more first read plays for Tyler Lockett. It's got to be Lockett. I like Curtis Samuel quite a bit. It's got to be Lockett. We gotta play Lockett. Yeah, I've always liked Curtis Samuel, but he's not in the same realm or same tier as Tyler Lockett. He's just not. You got to play Lockett. You got to play Lockett. Oh, right. You included Metcalf in the okay. Then that would be a little bit more fair. That would be fair. If that's the piece you include to make it a fair trade and you can get those 2 running backs, hell, I would even take you could even take one of the pieces, one of those running backs out of the trade. I guess, try to keep Montgomery. Turn James Cook and DK Metcalf into one of those 2 guys. That would also be a win for me. That would also be a win. I'd be okay with that. You're using Detroit's defense. It just depends on who's available. Did somebody drop the Chiefs? I don't know who the Chiefs play week 9, but they may have been dropped. They play Miami. Okay. That's not that's not enticing. That's not enticing for Kansas City. I don't know what the favorable week 9 matchups are. I would have to take a look. I mean, that's a little too far in advance. Um and who knows what type of injuries happen over the next 2 weeks. We'll worry. Let's revisit that next week when we're a little bit closer to it. Um a little closer to actually needing to figure that out. Um Yeah, the Chiefs might have been dropped, but I don't want to play them. If there's one, they're good, but if there's one offense I want to avoid with them, it's the Miami Dolphins. Charbonnet or Javonte Williams? Javonte. Charbonnet's probably. It looks like Charbonnet's not going to play. He hasn't practiced all this week. I don't know why he's being listed as questionable. He didn't practice at all Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It doesn't look like he's going to play. So Javonte Williams here. It's got to be Javonte Williams. And who would I rather have rest of season between Musgrave or Higbee? Well, Musgrave's passed his bye, so that's good. Higbee's value is in the toilet as long as both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are healthy. That's Musgrave. Here's the thing. Unless you have Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or Sam Laporta or TJ Hawkinson, or unless you have one of the top 6 guys, the answer to tight ends I'd rather have the rest of the season is which tight end would I rather have this week? This week, I'd rather have Musgrave. Next week, I guess I'd probably rather have Musgrave. After that, who the hell knows? Now, what if Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua get injured? What if one of those two has to miss time? Tight ends are not rest of season. Tight ends are week to week. They're week to week. But for now, tomorrow, Musgrave. I'd rather have Musgrave. And I will stick around a bit longer. I see there's a couple more questions in the chat, so I will hang out a little bit longer. But we are close to the end of the chat, so could be wrapping this up here shortly. Obviously, I will keep the door open for more questions. If anybody has any last minute thoughts or questions that come up between now and the slate, I will be live tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. So we'll get a couple hours in before the Sunday slate. If anything else pops up, if you want to reaffirm anything, or if you want to reassure any decisions that you might be making, I will be live tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, so you can catch me then as well. You can also join the Discord if you're not in the Discord. Second link in the description of this live stream and all of the videos on this channel. Free to join. Members will get a little bit more love, a little bit more priority, and I try to get to them sooner, but I will just try to get to the general public in general. But of course, one of the perks of being a member is a little extra attention in the Discord. But it's free to join for anybody who is not a part of it and would like to be. Okay, you have Christian Watson. You might want to. Christian Watson is in a beautiful spot tomorrow. You might want to find a way to sneak him in there if possible. Let's see. Full PPR. You're trying to get a high-end wide receiver 1. If you're trying to get Devontae Adams, DJ Moore and Alexander Madison isn't going to get it done. Try offering Puka straight up and try to chase the the recent hype. It's probably going to need to be like Puka and Madison. Don't know that I necessarily want to do that, but that's probably what it would cost. I mean, what's your record, Zach? Like, what are your, are you 4-2? Are you sitting pretty? Are you 2-4 and you're desperate for, wins? Like, DJ Moore is not going to be of much use for, like, DJ Moore is going to be tough to trust moving forward. Justin Fields is out multiple weeks. Uh, you're probably not going to be able to move off of him. Kirk is his team's wide receiver 1. Amari Cooper is his team's wide receiver 1. Puka is now his team's wide receiver 2. Maybe offer Puka for Adams 1 for 1, like straight up, and see if that gets it done. It probably doesn't, to be honest, but like it doesn't hurt to try. Like just try to have somebody who bought into the Puka hype and wants Puka. Maybe they're frustrated with Devontae Adams so far. To do like Puka for Adams 1 for 1 straight up. You could try that. That would be worth. But if they say no, which is I feel like likely. I mean, if you're 3-3, that's a pretty good collection of talent. Here's what you could do. Honestly, I am worried about Saquon Barkley for the rest of this season because the Giants are going nowhere fast. They're 1-5. Even if they beat Washington tomorrow, that just makes them 2-5. If they go 500 the rest of the way, they're a 6 or 7 win team. Saquon could start picking up random, like, oh, my back hurts, my leg hurts, my knee hurts. Like, Saquon can get more money next year. He can still get one last, well, his first and only long-term big money contract in the NFL. He can still get that next year. What's his incentive to potentially ruin his chances of that on a dead Giants team? Could you trade Saquon and then that way you can probably get away? Saquon would be a strong enough piece where you could maybe include DJ Moore and get Devontae Adams and like a depth and grab a running back from that whoever the running back pick a running back on that person's team and try to get that in return. I would try that. If they don't go for it, then they don't go for it. But I will caution anybody who has Saquon Barkley. You might want to take a look at offloading him and try to sell high for some strong pieces. Not because Saquon isn't awesome, but because is Saquon Barkley going to keep throwing his body out there on the line for a dead Giants team going nowhere in 2023 when he has probably his last best chance at a big payday this coming offseason? I would seriously consider trying to like sell high on Saquon Barkley before he potentially mails it in because the season is dead. The Giants are done. They're not a good team. And he already picked up an injury that forced him to miss time this year. Why would he run the risk of having the same thing happen and wreck his chances of a big payout, a big payday after this season for a team in the Giants going nowhere this year? That's your trade chip. That's your trade chip. So maybe him and DJ Moore for Adams and an RB2. You might be able to get away with that. You might be able to get away with that. Saquon is a big enough name You might be able to get away with that. He's got Pollard. I don't know if you're gonna be able to pull that off, but that would work for me. Pollard's been a little bit of a disappointment, but there's no concerns about whether or not he's gonna. We know that if he's, all things equal, Pollard's gonna play this year because the Cowboys see they're 4-2. Their season matters. The Giants are 1-5. Their season is very close to no longer mattering. The Giants are dangerously close to looking ahead to 2024. Yeah, explore that. See if they'll do it. I'm okay with that. Do I have any defense suggestions? Who's available? Did the Chiefs get dropped? I don't mind the Chiefs at home, even though it's the Chargers. Did they get dropped? Um, I just got done crapping all over the Giants, but they've got a really good spot tomorrow against Washington. Sam Howell takes a lot of sacks. Giants are in a good spot to get a lot of sacks. That might not be a bad spot. The Raiders are playing the Bears. They probably already got picked up. The Bucks aren't in a bad spot. The Bucks could be good. Bucks could be good against the Falcons. Just depends on who's available. Just depends on who's available. Okay, all those teams are available. I mean, the Chiefs are a little dicey because they have to play Justin Herbert. Um, but I don't hate the spot that they're in. Believe it or not, the Giants are not in a bad spot tomorrow. They should be in a spot to get a good number of sacks tomorrow. That might be your upside play, and the Chiefs are a floor play. The Giants are an upside play. Depends on what you think you might need. But the Giants are in a spot tomorrow at home where we should be able to expect them to get some sacks against Sam Howell. They should be able to get pressure on Sam Howell. They're not great, but I don't hate that spot for them tomorrow. It's all about matchups, baby. It's all about who looks good in what spot. Yeah. Giants ceiling, Chiefs floor. One of those two. I would take either one of those two. So there's other defenses. Those are good spots they're in. The Bucks are in a good spot. The Packers are in a good spot. I think I like the Chiefs and the Giants a little bit more tomorrow. The Chiefs are just a really good defense, and sometimes you just buy into really good defenses. And then the Giants are just in a really, really good spot tomorrow where they should be able to get some sacks against Sam Howell. I would think they can get 3 or 4. I would think they can get 3 or 4 sacks against Sam Howell. Not a bad spot to be in tomorrow. Do I think Foreman would be a decent start? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Aaron Jones is going to play, but if he is ruled out, I mean, I guess obviously the first question is AJ Dillon out there? Can you protect your Aaron Jones play with AJ Dillon? If not, then yeah, Foreman is fine. No Roshan Johnson, no Khalil Herbert. I don't know if is Travis Homer is he back? He is. Okay, but like he's a special teams guy. And then they have Darrington Evans. Nah, Foreman is fine. If A.J. Dillon is not out there, and he could be, but if he's not, then Foreman is fine. Foreman is fine. Not a bad spot. Good spot for him tomorrow. Good matchup tomorrow. He's a fine pivot. Foreman's a fine pivot if Aaron Jones doesn't go. I hope you're having a good day too, random kid. Puka for Godwin and Montgomery. I'd rather have Godwin and Montgomery. I'll take the 2-for-1, and as long as I want the Godwin and Montgomery side. If I am 4-2 or better, and my team is looking really good, and I can afford to wait on Montgomery's absence from the lineup. It's a little bit tougher of a sell if I'm 2-4 or even 3-3, and I need to wait 3 more weeks, most likely, on David Montgomery. That's a bit of a tougher sell. But if I'm 4-2 or 5-1 and I'm sitting pretty, like I like the rest of the makeup of my team, then sure, I'll take Godwin and wait for Montgomery. That's the situation where I want that side. That's the situation where I want that side. I'll take Godwin and Montgomery as long as I have a good record. If I don't have a good record and I'm still scrapping by for wins, you got to wait on Montgomery for a couple of weeks. He's not going to help you. So I'd rather have Puka than Godwin for the next couple of weeks. But long term, I'd rather have Godwin and Montgomery if I feel like my team can survive without Montgomery for the next couple of weeks. You offered Chase for Hill. Yeah, that's going to get rejected. Yeah, I mean, Tyreek Hill is the top player in fantasy right now. People are not gonna trade him. People are not, whether they should or shouldn't is a different question, but like Adams hasn't been as consistently awesome this year as he usually is, and Gibbs has not done anything. Chase has been a lot better, but he's gotten off to a somewhat slow start, and Hill has been the dude in fantasy this year. So, yeah, I mean, he's the best receiver in football. You're going to have to give up 2 of your best players to get him. You are not going to get Hill. Like Adams and Gibbs, yeah, I would say no to that as well. Gibbs just hasn't done anything. He could have a great game tomorrow. I still wouldn't accept that trade. Yeah, his ceiling's through the roof, man. Ceiling's through the roof. I wouldn't trade him if I have Tyreek Hill, I'm thinking to myself, you're not getting him unless I get you the best 2 players on your roster, whoever they are. Whether that's fair or not is a different conversation, but like that's the going rate right now. Whoever your 2 best players are, those are the players I need if I'm trading Tyreek Hill to you. I need your 2 best players. That's the going rate. He's the best player in fantasy right now. Yeah, best player in fantasy right now. Deontay or Rashee Rice? They're both flex plays. Deontay's in a tougher matchup against the Rams. They've been pretty good against wide receivers this year. And it's his first game back. Rice only has 2 games this year where he's cleared 50 yards receiving. Uh, Deontay. I'll take Deontay's the floor that we've come to expect from Deontay Johnson. I'll roll the dice on that. I'll roll the dice on that. It's a little tough to trust in his first game back, but Deontay's a PPR monster. Rice is still, for the most part, he's gotten involved. He's been good. He's outperformed the hell out of Sky Moore and Marquez Valdez Scantling and all that. But like the Chiefs wide receivers right now is Russian roulette. It's just like it's a grab bag. It's any guy any given week. If Deontay's in there, he's an every down player and a regular PPR beast. I'll take Deontay even in his first game back if if it's Rashee Rice as the potential alternative. Deontay. Uh Quarterbacks to stream. You picked up Baker. Howell's not there. I assume Geno's not there. Is Goff there? Any chance Goff is there? It's not a good matchup, but it's not a good matchup. But is Goff available? It depends on who. I would need to know who the other options are. Baker's not like a horrible option, but obviously most weeks you can do better. Yeah. So my outlook on the Rams backfield, I did address this closer to the top of the stream. I don't trust any of them. Like it could be Darrell Henderson. Maybe Myles Gaskin mixes in there a little bit. Maybe Royce Freeman gets in there. Sean McVay said that Zach Evans is still kind of like I'm paraphrasing his quotes. It sounds like Darrell Henderson could still be in like a developmental situation and they may not want to get him super involved, but also Sean McVay could just be making stuff up. It feels like Darrell Henderson is the guy to trust. Just going off of McVay's comments, it's just like, can I trust Sean McVay? Just based off of his press conference comments, I'm going to say no. You're only starting a Rams running back, and I guess it's Darrell Henderson if you are out of options. Injuries, buys, nobody on the waiver wire. Okay, fine. Darrell Henderson is a wing and a prayer. That's about it. Myles Gaskin, no. Royce Freeman, no. Zach Evans, no. Can't trust him. Nobody knows how this backfield is going to shake out. And I think it's fair to say don't necessarily trust what Sean McVay says. It could come to fruition. It could be true, but we're not going to know until tomorrow. And even then, it could be musical chairs. It could be another guy the following week. Darrell Henderson might have a nice game tomorrow, and then next week is the Royce Freeman show. Who the hell knows? I would say the only way you're starting Darrell Henderson is if you are out of options. You're between him and Justice Hill. Then I guess I would roll the dice on Henderson. I do not trust this Rams backfield right now. There's too much unknown. There's way too much unknown. Let's see. This was the Godwin and Montgomery for Puka trade. You have Mostert, you have Eckler, you have Puka, you have Devontae Smith, but you also have Breece Hall. You have Jamar Chase. Okay, I mean, yeah, you could. The problem is, like, you're going to be putting a good play. I guess it might be Mostert when Achane comes back. I guess you could play Eckler, Montgomery, and Breece. Mm, I don't mind the 2 for 1 in most situations. That's tough because you're not gonna be starting Godwin. I guess if Chase comes back, I guess it's injury protection. That 2 for 1 is injury protection, I guess, for you, which it's never a bad thing to have depth. You could drop Dalton Schultz to make it happen because you have Laporta. Yeah, okay. I don't if you wanna make that trade, I'm okay with it. If you wanna make that trade, I'm okay with it. Because you're getting 2 good pieces for 1, and even though you're 3 and 3, you have the horses at running back to be able to wait on Montgomery. I'm okay with the trade if you wanna make it. I'm okay with the trade if you wanna make it. I'm okay with it. Yeah, because you've got the pieces at running back to be able to wait on David Montgomery, so I would be okay with it. Um, yeah, you have good okay. It's good, really good. Yeah, see, like, so citizen, I like if someone came asking for Tyreek Hill, I'd be like, I would be as greedy as hell. I would say you need to give me Cup and Eckler. I would be greedy as hell. I would be greedy as hell, and I would be, and no, I mean, this isn't this. I see you have Tua. I would be the greediest with you because I know, and this isn't like I'm not trying to you know insinuate anything or whatever. It's just like, I see what you're trying to do. You want to stack Tua and Tyreek. That's fine. Right now, today, I need your 2 best players. I need Cup and I need Eckler. That's what I would ask for. And you probably don't want to do that. And I don't blame you for not wanting to do that. Those are 2 really, really good pieces. It's a high end wide receiver 1 and a high end running back 1. But that's what I would, if I had Tyreek Hill and your team came asking for Tyreek Hill, I would say Cup and Eckler or no deal. And I'm not moving off that. That's the reality of the situation with Tyreek Hill right now. He's on fire. He's on pace for that 2,000-yard receiving season that he wanted or that he claimed he would have in the offseason. He's got over 800 receiving yards in week 6. Like, he's going to hit 1,000 yards receiving before the midway point. He's on fire right now. Yeah, I would say Cup and Eckler, and nothing else will get it done, especially because you have Tua or Chase and Eckler. Yeah, Eckler and either Cup or Chase. That's what it would cost. I need both of those guys. Might not be fair. Doesn't sound fair. Probably something you're not interested in doing at all. But that's the going rate. That's the asking price right now. That's how on fire Tyreek Hill is. Yeah. The price for Tyreek Hill right now is your 2 best players. That is a blanket statement for everybody. Like, if you want Tyreek Hill, I need your 2 best players. He's on fire right now. Zay Flowers or Hollywood in full PPR, I would probably go Flowers. Flowers is safe. Hollywood is a little bit more of an upside play. If you think you need upside, if you want to swing for the fences, then maybe Marquise Brown. But if you think you can play it safe, then I guess I would say Flowers. Hollywood is your upside play, swing for the fences play. Flowers is your safe play. Flowers floor, Hollywood ceiling. Uh Taylor or Terry McLaurin? I would probably Taylor's got a tough matchup against the Colts. McLaurin has a beatable matchup against the Giants. If it's full PPR, I don't know the scoring. I would go full. If it's full PPR, McLaurin. If it's half PPR or standard, then I would go Taylor. Full PPR, Terry. Half or standard scoring, I would go Taylor. It's a tough spot for Taylor against the Browns, but also we're getting close, I think, to that. We're getting back to the area where Jonathan Taylor is just a regular dude in your lineup no matter what. I think we're getting close to that spot. We're getting close to that time where Taylor becomes a set and forget in your lineup. But if it's full PPR, I would probably go Terry. It's a beatable matchup. Stevenson, Dillon, Reynolds, Moss. You need two running backs and a flex. Is that Michael Wilson? I think you have to start Stevenson, even though it feels gross. You have to start Stevenson. That Michael Wilson or Jeff Wilson? You have to start Stevenson. I guess between Dillon and Moss, Dillon's playing the Broncos. Moss is playing Browns. That's a brutal spot. It's Jeff Wilson. Okay. Stevenson, Dillon, and McLaurin in your flex. Dillon is just Dillon is in the better matchup by far. They're both in the same role. Moss has been way better. I'll say this. Stevenson has to be one of your running backs. McLaurin has to be your flex. I'll say Moss is your floor play, but if you need to swing for the fences, then I would say Dillon in a great matchup against the Broncos with Aaron Jones, still less than 100%. Stevenson, McLaurin, I'll say Moss floor, Dillon ceiling. But Dillon's floor is lower than Moss's. Stevenson, McLaurin, Moss floor, Dillon ceiling. What's going on, Rojo? Good to see you, man. I am sorry about David Montgomery. He's hurting everybody until week 10. He's hurting everybody. That he was on his way to a top 6 or 7 finish for the season. David Montgomery. If you can hang on to him, hang on to him. Good buy low if you don't have him, and you can wait on some running back depth. But if you have him and you're not 1-5 or 2-4, then I would just hold on to him. But appreciate it, Rojo. Good to see you. Hope we got some good teams this year in general, despite losing Montgomery. Um, Brown, Robinson, or Taylor in full PPR. I really like Robinson's spot tomorrow. I would probably go. I'll say Brian Robinson is. Oh man, I can't believe I'm doing this. Is Taylor the odd man out just because of the matchup? We're close. We're so close to Taylor being an automatic in your lineup. We're so close. But I feel like we maybe need, if you have really good options to pivot to, then I feel like we need to wait one more week because it's a brutal matchup against the Browns. I'll say Brian Robinson is your floor play, but if you need upside, if you need that ceiling play, then Hollywood. Uh, Devontae Adams. Do not start Jacoby Myers this week. Not without Jimmy Garoppolo. You want to go? I would go Devontae, Terry, and Taylor. I do not trust. I do not trust Jacoby Myers without Jimmy Garoppolo. A lot of his value has been tied to Jimmy Garoppolo likes throwing the ball to Jacoby Myers. We can't sit here and definitively say that that's going to continue with Brian Hoyer. Like Brian Hoyer might have eyes for Devontae Adams. He should. Every quarterback should. But Jimmy G likes throwing the ball to Jacoby Myers. I don't want to play Jacoby Myers without Jimmy G until I see a good performance from Jacoby Myers without Jimmy G. With Aiden O'Connell, week 4, Myers had 2 catches for 33 yards. I just, don't want to play Myers. I'll play Adams, Taylor, and Terry. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. Najee or Kareem Hunt. Oi. Najee is so blah, man. Good God. They're in the same tier. They are in the same tier, man. Hunt. Najee instills no confidence. Najee instills zero confidence whatsoever. If Hunt is active, Hunt. If he's inactive, then I guess the decision is easy and you just play Najee. But like, I do not trust Najee Harris. I'll take the L on liking Najee Harris early in the offseason. I'll take the L on that one. But like, he doesn't have more than 11 half PPR points this year. And in every game, he's scored 7.5 PPR points or less. $4.3 half PPR points week 1, 4.8 half PPR points week 2, 6.5 half PPR points week 3. He did get 10.8 against Houston week 4. And then 4.5 against Baltimore. Like Najee Harris is an RB4, man. I would just play Hunt. That's how far Harris has fallen. I would just play Hunt. If he's inactive, then you could just fire up Najee, but I would play Kareem Hunt. That's how bad it is with Najee Harris, man. Trade A.J. Brown, ETN for Jefferson, Addison, and Swift. Absolutely not. I agree. Not trying to be rude. That's a bad trade. No. Keep A.J. Brown, keep ETN. Absolutely not. I do not want to acquire Justin Jefferson in any situation. Unless if you're 6-0 and killing it, you're dominating. You're leading the league in points by a huge margin, or maybe you're 5-1, but you're dominating. You're killing it. Then okay, fine, maybe. Otherwise, no. I don't know that we're going to see the rest of Justin Jefferson this season. Consider the situation, and I've said this the past couple of weeks. I'm not moving off of this right now. Jefferson is on IR. He's going to miss week 7, week 8, week 9. We don't know for a fact that he will be back week 10, 11, or 12. It sounded like it wasn't definitive a couple of weeks ago that Jefferson would definitely come back after this IR stint. On top of that, the Vikings are 2-4. They play the 49ers on Monday night. And then they got to go on the road and play the Packers and the Falcons. What happens if the Vikings season spirals out? And then they got the week 13 bye, which is going to be a crucial week in all likelihood as you head toward the playoffs. And you're not going to have Justin Jefferson that week. What happens if the Vikings season spirals out? They're not going to put Justin Jefferson back on the field in a lost season, dealing with a soft tissue injury, dealing with a hamstring injury. They're not going to put him back out there. They're going to preserve him. They're going to protect him. No, I would say no. I have a lot of pause acquiring Justin Jefferson. I would need to be 6-0 and dominating to the point where it's like, yeah, I'll roll the dice on that risk. I say no. A.J. Brown's a top 5 wide receiver. Travis Etienne's a top 5 running back. No. I would say no. No shot. No shot. No shot. Which Rams running back would I start? None of them. None of them. Hopefully you have any other option you can turn to. I would play Zach Moss over any of those guys. I would play Josh Reynolds over any of those guys. Hell, I would probably play Jeff Wilson over any of those guys. I don't know that Darrell Henderson is going to be the guy. I don't know if Sean McVay lied about Zach Evans and he's actually more ready to contribute than McVay led on. I don't know if like Myles Gaskin and Royce Freeman are annoyingly going to get 5 or 6 touches each. The answer to the Rams backfield is other running backs not playing for the Rams. I don't want to play any of them. I would play Zach Moss over all of them. I would play Josh Reynolds over all of them. I would play A.J. Dillon over all of them. I would play Jeff Wilson over all of them. The guys that you mentioned above, if this is the same league, I would play all of those dudes over any Rams running back. Yeah, not feeling it. Not feeling it. Way too much uncertainty. Way too much uncertainty. Rojo, you got offered Mixon for Tank Dell in a best ball dynasty league. Feels like a smash accept. It's dynasty, so Tank Dell's got a lot of long-term appeal. At least right now. If you're playing to win this year, then I'd rather have Mixon. If you're playing to win this year, I'd rather have Mixon. If you are trying to hedge by winning this year, but also you're keeping that eye on the future, you're keeping an eye on the long haul, then I understand wanting to hang on to Tank Dell. Mixon is more of a this year move, but for the future, for dynasty moving forward, Tank Dell has more value. Just as the younger wide receiver. If you're the best team in the league, Rojo, then I would take Mixon. But if that's not the case, I would maybe hang on to Tank Dell. Because it's dynasty is why it's not a smash accept. You know? Because it's dynasty, that's why it's not smash accept. Like Tank Dell's got some real long-term appeal, or at least that's what it looks like. Let's see. Yeah, we're hurting at running back this week. That's okay. We'll figure it out. Latavius Murray, Justice Hill, McLaughlin. You have Ingram and Hunt. Uh Latavius is without Damian Harris. Justice Hill is against Detroit. I don't like Justice Hill this week. Um Ingram's okay. McLaughlin is a little bit more interesting. And then there's Kareem Hunt. I like Latavius as a floor play. Maybe McLaughlin is a ceiling upside play. He should get involved as a receiver if the past couple of weeks are any indication. Latavius floor. I would think he gets in the mix. I would think he gets involved against New England without Damian Harris. I would say McLaughlin is a little bit more of a ceiling play, an upside play if you think you need it. But his floor is probably lower than Latavius. Hunt would be a little bit more of a guy that I'd be enthused by if he wasn't on the injury report. And I just don't know that Hunt's role is going to stay the way it was like it was last week. Like, this could just be a Jerome Ford week. This could be like a matchup thing. I'll say Latavius floor. McLaughlin has a little bit more upside, but I would say his floor is lower. Is Pickens not Pickens over Terry? No, not this week. Tough matchup, and Deontay is back. No, play Terry McLaurin. And if you yourself are iffy about it, then hopefully that helps drive it home. I would play Terry McLaurin. Nothing scary about the matchup against the Giants. The Rams have been good against opposing wide receivers, and now Deontay Johnson is back. Pickens historically has been kind of pedestrian with Deontay in the lineup. I know it's a small sample size. Pickens was only a rookie just last year, but Deontay's going to steal targets away directly from Pickens. So, no, I would play Terry. I would play Terry. Yeah, not playing Pickens over Terry McLaurin. Start Amari or Christian Watson. Cooper's your safe play. Cooper's your safe play, and I probably would just go with him. Watson's in a great matchup tomorrow. He's a swing for the fences, but his floor is lower than Amari Cooper's. I would probably just play Amari. As far as the trade Amari, Ferguson, and Zach Evans for Goddard. Is that Ridley and Stevenson? That's upgrades at two positions. It's a downgrade going from Amari to Ridley. I would need to know who your other wide receivers are. Well, I guess Christian Watson's one of them. I would want to know who your other receivers are in addition to Amari and Christian Watson. But it is an upgrade at two spots, so I'm not unopposed to it. Let me know who your other receivers are, Chandler, and we can figure that out. Rojo, defending champ. Hell yeah. Nicely done, bro. but you lost some pieces. All right, you've got good receivers. Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay doing that then. Grab Mixon, give up Mixon or get Mixon, give up Tank Dell. Given those circumstances, yeah, I'm okay with that. And Judy has been trash. I'm very disappointed with him. I've been on the bandwagon of Jerry Judy for 2 years running now. It might be time to hop off. The vibes are bad. Vibes are bad. But yep, mix him for Tank Dell. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Watson, Pittman, or London, pick 2. Probably not Pittman. It's a brutal matchup tomorrow. The Browns are giving up the fewest points on the season to opposing wide receivers. The Browns are giving up the fewest points in the NFL to wide receivers. I would play Watson for the ceiling, and I would play London and just hope for the best, even though they're on the road. But London has been pretty good since that week 1 goose egg. I would go Watson and London. And I would avoid Pittman this week in a bad matchup against the Browns. Ingram, Murray, Hill, Zeke, or Reynolds. Yeah, they did get you good. I would say Murray. I kind of like the spot that Latavius Murray is in tomorrow. No Damian Harris. This feels like it could be a weird division game. You have to churn out some tough yards on offense. Buffalo can't play as pretty as they usually want to. Maybe they can, but it's going to be tougher in a division game against New England. But New England's missing key pieces on defense. Matthew Judon is down. Christian Gonzalez is down. I would play Murray most likely and just hope for the best. Hope he gets involved, gets in the mix as the change of pace guy in that backfield. Maybe gets a goal line opportunity or 2. I would take Murray. Plus, he's attached to the best quarterback of these guys. I'll take Latavius Murray of that group. And okay, now that I have some context, Chandler, I'm okay with that trade. It's a big upgrade going from Evans to Stevenson. Stevenson hasn't been great, but you'd rather have Stevenson than Evans by a country mile. I guess I'd rather have Goddard than Ferguson. I'd rather have Amari Cooper than Ridley, obviously, but as the third piece in that trade where you're upgrading in 2 spots, I think I'm okay with it, given your other pieces. I think I'm okay with it. And you could use another running back. Like, you could really use another running back because Connor is down and Evans is... I don't know that Evans is much of anything. We just don't know. At least this year, anyway. I am okay with that move if you want to make that trade. I am okay with it. Given your other pieces, I am okay with that trade if you want to make it. Looks pretty good. We are at the end of the chat, so probably going to be wrapping this up here in the next couple of minutes. Again, if anybody has any last minute questions, if any last minute pop in here, I can take them. But if not, if you miss me, 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, I will be on before the Sunday slate. We can go over any last-minute start-sit questions. If you need any confirmations or reassurances on anything we talked about tonight, that's fine. Or if anything new pops up, feel free to drop it in. You can also join the Discord. Second link in the description of this stream and all the videos on my channel. So you can pop in there. Free to join. Members get a higher priority, but the general public I will try to get to as well, especially on game day. James Cook or Gibbs? Oh, God. I guess I would go Gibbs. especially if it's full PPR. He should be fine. Um, if he can't get all the work now, coming off the bye week and having back healthy, or it's presumably back healthy with no David Montgomery. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, then it's then well, I don't know when we can expect Jahmyr Gibbs to be that guy that we drafted him to be. I'll go Gibbs over Cook. I'll go Gibbs over Cook. And then just hope for the best. Allen, Amon-Ra, or Adams. Dog. You have to sit one of these two. Yell at the commission, expand the starting lineup. There's no right answer here. Somebody's going to pop off on your bench. I guess I would go I guess I would go in full PPR. I'd probably go Keenan Allen and Amon-Ra. At least they have their quarterbacks. Adams should be fine with Brian Hoyer, but like it's a backup QB. I mean, you're going to have there's going to be wide receiver 1 numbers on your bench tomorrow most likely, but I would take Allen and Amon-Ra. And then I would yell at your commissioner and expand the starting lineup for next year. Yeah. That's a shitty decision you got to make. It's a 4-man league. No offense, man, but drop that league. No offense, but that's not worth it. That's not worth it. You're going to have you're going to have stud performances on your bench every week. That's just I don't know. I would not enjoy that personally. I would not enjoy that. That sucks. I hate benching really good players. I hate that. Seattle Giants. 1 point for punt return yards is like that's a crapshoot. That's a crapshoot. I think the Giants are in a good spot to get some sacks tomorrow. Seattle's in a good matchup against Arizona. They're pretty safe. Might just play Seattle and hope for the best. The Giants are in a good spot to get some sacks tomorrow. I will say that. Sam Howell will take sacks. Giants are a ceiling play, but their floor is low because they're just not that good. But they're in a good opportunistic spot tomorrow. But Seattle is a better floor play. Seattle is a safer floor play. Giants are a bit more of a moonshot if you think you need it. And no, I would still play Latavius Murray. I would not play Jeff Wilson. Not first game back. Not first game back. I don't trust that. Swift or Breece rest of season? Breece, and it's not close. Breece Hall is the more talented player. He's not in as good of a situation, but he is the better player. And the training wheels have come off. Dalvin Cook is burnt toast. He's not offering anything at this point, outside of if anything happens to Breece Hall. Breece Hall is, I would say, like a top 3 running back rest of season. Swift is more like a top 15, maybe top 12 running back rest of season, but Breece rest of season easily, for sure. For me anyway. Swift is in a great spot, right? Running behind that Eagles offensive line. That's a great spot to be in. It's really strong, but he's not involved in the receiving game a ton, and he's involved in the receiving game. He's not involved at the goal line. He's missing out on goal line opportunities to Jalen Hurts. That's the difference. And it's a big difference. Breece is going to get those goal line opportunities. Breece is going to get those goal line opportunities, and he's just the better player. Breece Hall for sure. Okay, it's for fun. Okay, got it. If it's for fun, if it's not for money, then okay, you're having a good time with friends. Then okay, that's all good. Reed or Warren? I would probably go Warren. I think he's taking that backfield over. I think he might take that backfield over tomorrow. Najee's not it, man. Najee's not it. I would say Warren. I think he's going to take that backfield over. He is the better player. He is the more explosive player. I would take Warren. I like Jaden Reed, but with Watson back, Aaron Jones is back. Dubs is still there doing his thing. Reed is probably going to lose opportunities. Musgrave is doing his thing. I like Jaden Reed, but there's more mouths to feed. Warren should be the dude in the Steelers' backfield. Sutton or Elijah Moore? Sutton. I think it's a really good matchup tomorrow, right? It's not a great matchup, but Sutton has been Russ's guy. Elijah Moore has been very uninspiring so far this year. He's not a drop, but he's not. With Watson, Watson is still iffy. He's still 50-50. I would just play Sutton. Even though we're getting close to the Broncos just completely imploding. Let's see. Happy to help. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Donta Foreman is better than all those options. Tucker, yes. Foreman is better than all the. I would play if Foreman is available. Drop any one of those dudes. Take your least favorite. Doesn't matter to me. Any one of those guys is droppable if you need to. If Foreman's already on your bench, Foreman over all those dudes. Foreman over all those dudes. For sure. And Mary, Jahmyr Gibbs, is he? I mean, I would say you have to play him if he's. I don't know if the specific about being any good. I mean, you have to play him. I would say if he can't get it done tomorrow without David Montgomery, he's had a couple of weeks. Yes, he's been injured, but he's had a couple of weeks to continue to get acclimated with the offense, and it's going to be his backfield tomorrow. Craig Reynolds is less than 100%. He's on the injury report. You got to fire him up. Especially in PPR. If it's standard scoring, he's way less interesting. But if it's at least half PPR, that's great. If it's full PPR, it's wheels up. Got to play Jahmyr Gibbs. It's do or die time. It's do or die time with Jahmyr Gibbs, and I say fire him up, especially in full PPR leagues. All right, guys. That'll do it for me tonight. Any questions, you can bring them tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, or drop them in the Discord. Second link in the description of this video. Otherwise, everybody, appreciate the engagement. Appreciate the questions tonight. Appreciate everybody's patience as I work through these questions. Browns defense, Tucker. Don't play the Eagles against the Dolphins. No shot. Not against that offense. Play the Browns. Appreciate everybody's questions and the engagement. I'll see y'all tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll finalize any start-sit questions then, right before the slate. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.